Hello everybody, it's Peter here again, Peter Beresford from Shaping Our Lives, the National Independent Service User and Disabled People's Organisation. And this is the fifth of our little videos, our DVDs, our filmettes about user involvement. And today what I'm going to try and talk about briefly is why user involvement in research and evaluation is a bad thing. Now I've got to start where the situation is, haven't I really? And I need to be honest about this and admit that in recent years there's been a lot of talk and a lot of pressure about user involvement in research. A lot of people are saying it's a good thing and we need to be able to deal with that view. Indeed, many research funders, including government and the big research councils, as well as independent funders, a number of research organisations, some researchers, and of course service users themselves, and even some journals are saying that user involvement in research is a necessary and a good thing. Now they put forward many arguments for this. They say, for example, that it's not enough for people to be the objects or the subjects or the participants in research. Now I'm not sure really why they feel that, because I'd have thought it was pretty good to be included in that sort of a way as research data. And there was nothing wrong with the old language of being a research object. However, there seems to be a view that this isn't sufficient, and people are saying that service users should actually be involved in every aspect of the research, that they should be involved right from the very beginning in working out what research to do, how to do it, doing it, analysing it, pulling together the data and then producing the findings and sending them out to people. All of those should involve service users, it's said. That's the argument, and they've even got views about why that should be so. They say that if service users are involved, as they argue, then we'll get better research because service users will know what's really necessary to find out to improve their lives. So they'll get a better focus for research and they'll ask better research questions. And if you ask service users to be involved, for example, in interviewing, then what they'll be able to do, because of their own shared experience with research participants, they'll be able to have a more understanding, a more sensitive, a more trusting attitude to carrying out those interviews, so that people in turn are more likely to want to take part, feel reassured by having service users involved, and more likely actually to tell it how it is. And so the arguments go on. Well, you'll have to judge for yourself. I mean, frankly, it's all very well for service users and their supporters to say that. But let's look back at the traditions of research. And of course, historically, from the Enlightenment, 200 years ago, research has been recognised to be very much a scientific thing. And right from the start, it was professional, white, elite men who showed themselves interested and able to carry out this research. And that's why we still tend to think of research often as men in white coats carrying out investigations which probably only they would know about and understand how to undertake. And I think we need to be honest and realistic about this. Research is, we know, the most rigorous way of finding things out. It needs to be done, therefore, in a scientific way. That's certainly, I think, how historically we've developed the research we've got. And let's just look at some of the principles that have helped us get to where we've been in research. Principles of neutrality, objectivity, and distance. Those are important traditional principles of research. And what it means is the researcher is objective. They're not influenced by their own personal feelings. The researcher is neutral. The researcher doesn't have a stake in it by having shared experience, for example. And the researcher is distant from the phenomenon. They don't know anything about it as human beings. It's not something that happens to them. So they're not going to be influenced in any kind of a way. Now, those values, it seems to me, are transcendental values. values that go beyond any particular time. Now, of course, I realise that some may say, well, if you want neutrality, objectivity and distance, then what you're actually saying is that whatever people as service users have got to say is going to be qualified and limited in how useful it is, because they're going to be biased by their experience, by their subjectivity, by not being distant. Now, that seems to me a fair point. It's all very well to argue that that because they know they'll treat people in a better way, because they've lived it, they'll have a starting point, which means that they'll be on the right track for working out what to do about research, and to be very conscious not to be limited, for example, just by what funders want or what governments say they should be doing, or what's likely to get published in esoteric, very abstruse journals. But, you know, I think we need to be very sort of wary of this approach, this assumption that service users kind of know best, that their knowledge could be of, just from living the experience, could be as valuable as the kind of expert knowledge that gets picked up in books and from professional training. I want us to be on guard against falling into those kinds of traps. And also I think it's important to understand that doing research requires skills. I know that there are now service user researchers who are professors. There's even a professor of user-led research. I know that there are service users who are undertaking PhDs who show an enormous capacity for getting it right in carrying out innovative user-led and user involvement research. But I want us to keep in mind those old standards of the 19th century when things were done in a very certain way which seemed to work, and where there wasn't so much vague talk about the importance of inclusion and diversity. So that's where I want to leave it today. I want us to be very, very critical of these new, trendy, one might say, approaches to user involvement in research. After all, we know that research is truly independent. Just because the government commissions research doesn't mean it won't publish it if it doesn't like what the findings are, or that the researcher will be bound to say the sorts of things they know that the government wants to hear if they ever want to get funded again, or that the researcher would be very wary of offending their university, his university probably, because they might not get promotion. No, that's not the sort of bias we're talking about. I would like to see things keep going in the helpful way they've gone. Of course we should pay attention to user involvement in research, but probably to evaluate it we will need a strong core of traditional non-user researchers at hand, because we do not want to dilute the quality of research, the kind of research that was associated with important developments in the past, like eugenics, like racist understandings of intelligence, for example. We need not to leave that fine tradition as just being in the past and pander to the whims of people whose only real understanding of anything is that they've lived it and know about it 24/7. Thanks very much, everybody. No, I think this could actually be an assault on your group's